Highlands of Scotland nurture within their mountains and rivers, forests and lochs, some of the most magnificent beasts to have ever roamed the world. But as the wars raged on and blood was spilt, we lost our forests. As heather took our moors, we lost our mountains. As pollution and nitrification gripped our water, we lost our rivers and lochs. With our dying land, we lost our great beasts, and what remains we must preserve. This is the story of a tiger, our very own Scottish wildcat.
Having outlived the wolf, lynx and bear, driven to extinction in Britain by human persecution, the wildcat is a survivor, adaptable and resilient. The changes the wildcat has had to adapt to are plentiful, and many of its past threats remain relevant today. We met with Scottish Wildcat Action to discuss the future of wildcats in Scotland.
I was inspired to join the Scottish Wildcat Action project because I'm passionate about wildlife conservation and I really wanted to get involved in saving a species that is really on the brink of local extinction. But I also wanted to do something that involved domestic animal welfare and communities as well. So by helping domestic cats, we are also helping wildcats. So really it's a win-win.
In the West, we're very good at telling other nations how they ought to conserve their large endangered carnivores. We've exterminated nearly all of ours. This is one of the few that is left, and I feel we should set a good example by carrying out what we preach to others.
Conserving Scottish wildcats is important because they are a native mammal that belongs in Scotland. They're part of our natural heritage, part of our cultural heritage, and an icon, if you like, of the Scottish landscape.
They're a predator, one of the few largish predators that we have left. They require particular habitats which are quite rapidly disappearing, and there are conflicts with people which need sorting out.
Despite having inhabited this land for millions of years before humankind arrived, habitat loss is a major threat to wild cats as we continue to encroach on wild territories. Once roaming all of British mainland, wild cats are now confined to the Scottish Highlands. Though originally specialised on forest habitats, widespread and heavy deforestation in Scotland has forced an evolution in wildcat behaviour, leading to utilisation of a mixture of habitat types. For over 150 years, humans viewed these predators as man-killers, and since the 1950s, wildcats have faced resentment for killing game birds and lamb.
We as a country have left it very, very late, but it's not completely hopeless yet. And I'm certainly out there trying my very darndest to protect the best cats that I can still find in the countryside. I've certainly had the privilege of meeting a few wildcats and know that they're worth protecting.
I think the situation for the wild cats got worse over the last decade or so. There are now only very small remnant populations.
So the Scottish Wildcat Action Project is taking a really multi-pronged approach to trying to preserve this species. So as well as the in-situ conservation work, which involves neutering feral cats and so forth, we are also doing a lot to do with habitat management. So we're trying to improve the way forests and countryside are managed to help wildcats. We're trying to do a huge amount of education and prevention work with everyone from school children to gamekeepers to foresters and landowners to try and make sure that the places where wildcats live are protected properly. We're also trying to do a huge amount of community engagement work to get the local people to play their part in protecting the species, and that's really important as well.
To encourage cat owners to get their pets neutered and vaccinated. And this is probably most difficult, and it might be the more important, to encourage people who have largely free-living cats, even colonies of cats on their land, to assist the project, particularly in areas bordering good wildcat habitat where there's still remnant populations of wildcats, to get those cats neutered so that the interbreeding can be reduced.
The sheer numbers of feral cats out there, the sheer numbers of unowned cats in Scotland is a big issue.
At the moment, we can't be certain what effect that will have, but it's only by studying situations where that is taking place that we will be able to work out what the interbreeding rates are and whether or not they can be reduced enough to give us viable populations in the future.
And of course it has the added benefit of also helping the feral cats and good for their welfare as well. So we do believe that neutering, or as we call it TNVR, trap, neuter, vaccinate and return, is the best way to control that hybridisation threat without having to resort to anything like lethal culling, which is not something our project is currently involved in.
Since wildcats typically produce free kittens in early spring, the gene diluting effect of hybridisation can be quite rapid. The difficulty distinguishing between wildcats, hybrids and feral cats has resulted in increased shooting of the legally protected wildcats by farmers. Perhaps more importantly, differentiating between wildcats and hybrids has caused disagreement between conservation organisations with what may appear to be a basic question: what is a Scottish wildcat?
Well, there are different approaches to protecting any species and differences of opinion. In this case, we agree with everybody involved in wildcat conservation that what is going wrong for the wildcat, and that it needs all the help it can get and all the friends it can get, and we accept that some people might have slightly different approaches or different solutions to those problems. Some people are more purist than us, so we believe that as long as the cat is vast majority wildcat ancestry, looks like a wildcat, acts like a wildcat and does a wildcat job in the environment, for the time being at least it's worth preserving. We are not claiming to only be protecting 100% pure wildcats, because there may not be any such thing anymore. What we are trying to do is protect cats that are most like a historical wildcat that we can find. And that means we're taking a very precautionary approach. We're being sensible. We're saying let's protect the wildcats and the very best of the hybrids out there, with the hope that we can keep improving that population and breeding back to true by supplementing the population in future. So we're taking a precautionary approach. We are preserving what we think is the closest thing to a wildcat that we can still find out in the wild, but some of the cats we're finding are pretty darn beautiful, so we're pretty confident that we still have the remains of a remnant population that are definitely worth preserving in situ in the wild where they belong.
Wildcats are identified genetically by the appearance of their tail or coat markings.
It can be quite difficult to identify a wildcat and distinguish it from a hybrid or a feral cat, particularly to the untrained eye. They are of course genetically different and they have lots of internal differences, but really what we have to go on in the majority of cases is appearance. And we actually use something called pelage scoring, which is a 21-point system developed by a chap called Dr. Andrew Kitchener, which looks for things that are different on a wildcat to an ordinary domestic tabby cat. But of course we have a whole range of cats, including hybrids in between. So it can be quite difficult, but it is a system that allows us to make a good educated guess as to the percentage ancestry of a cat, and we use that to decide which cats to celebrate and protect and which cats to neuter instead.
Scottish Wildcat Action and the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland have also launched a captive breeding programme.
We think that's a really important backup plan that could play a very important role in the future for this species.
In December 2016, around 80 wildcats were in captivity, where they have been found to survive for up to 15 years, compared to 6 to 8 in the wild. This approach has been met with criticism. Opponents have argued that Scottish wildcats need to be conserved within natural habitat.
I hope the future for the Scottish wildcat is bright. It is certainly going to take a lot of work to save this species, but I think it is possible. What I would really dearly love to see is us having stabilised the population in the wild to start to see the green shoots of recovery and see that population start to come up. That might take some time. It's not an easy fix, but we will get there.
The Scottish wildcat has continued to face a multitude of challenges, the most grievous being hybridization. Although the neutering of domestic and feral cats to halt widespread hybridization is generally accepted, conservation organizations are extremely split on where the genetic boundary of a pure wildcat lies. Also, the use of captive breeding to supplement wild remnant populations continues to be a point of public debate. The need to protect wildcats is uncontested by conservation organizations. They agree that this wild and mysterious animal is a necessary and worthwhile endeavor. However, cooperation between these groups is lacking, and to secure a future for the Scottish wildcat, this must change.